Hey everybody, Rob Hoke here, Bass Talker Fishing. Today I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the Chatterbait or the Bladed Jig. There's one, hold on. Ooh, that's a, I don't even know, is that a bass? It's a big fish. These are such strong fish. And that's why you throw the chatterbait. Alright guys, chatterbaits. I'm actually very surprised I haven't done a video on this bait yet. It's one of my favorite ways to fish. I almost always have one tied on, no matter what time of the year it is, whether it's pre-spawn, post-spawn, summer, or fall. I tend to always have one of these baits tied on. And I know there's a lot of hesitation in fishing these baits. They're relatively new. They're not like really new, but when you're talking about baits like spinner baits and crankbaits and poppers and things like that, it's relatively a new bait. But a lot of tournaments, a lot of money has been won on the Bladed Jig or the Chatterbait. There's a lot of different brands out there. Me personally, I like the Z-Man's original Chatterbait. They made a lot of improvements to the bait. They've made a longer hook, and they've also added a better keeper, where the first couple ones that they came out with, the first ones I bought probably 3-4 years ago, didn't have this keeper on the original Z-Man's Chatterbait. But this keeper is great for the swim bait trailers, which is how I throw it most of the time. I put a little dab of glue on there, slide my swim bait up, and it holds that bait nice. They also improved the line tie. It used to have just kind of like a snap swivel there, and they changed it to this style line tie, and it works a lot better. It doesn't open up on you at all like the older style did. So really, the Z-Man's original Chatterbait is the one I use. I like the bait. I don't feel the need to spend that couple extra dollars and get the Elite or the Pro models. It's got a good hook. I've never had a problem with straightening the hook or anything like that. The line tie is good. It's got a good keeper, and I actually think the keeper system is better on the originals than the Elites. So that's just the style I use. I know other people who prefer the Pure Poison, and there's other types of bladed jigs out there, other companies, but I'm sticking with the Z-Man's original Chatterbait. It's worked well for me this year. I probably told you before, probably 70% of my big fish have come on a Chatterbait. I know a lot of people are hesitant to throw this bait, especially people who've been fishing for a while and are such supporters of the spinnerbait. And this bait doesn't really take anything away from the spinnerbait. The spinnerbait is still a great way to catch fish, but they've also seen the spinnerbait a lot. Throughout the years, they've seen so many spinnerbaits. I still use spinnerbaits. I still catch a lot of fish on spinnerbaits, but I tend to use them in probably the most typical spinnerbait weather, where I have overcast, chop on the water. When they're really on schools of bait, that's when I'm going to select to use a spinnerbait. But if it's dirtier water, stained water, those types of situations, I'm going to use the Chatterbait, because I feel you get better vibration. And it also lets me use swim baits in lakes I normally wouldn't typically be able to throw a swim bait, because the water's too dirty. Because the power of the swim bait a lot of times is those fish being able to see it. And in that dirtier water, when they can't see it, it kind of loses its effectiveness. But when you throw it on a Chatterbait like this, then they're able to hone in on the vibration it draws the fish in, and then when they get close, they see that more natural profile, and it's a killer bait for most of the year. So, and we're gonna get into everything you guys need to know to fish this bait, to add this bait to your toolbox and put more fish in the boat with it. First and foremost, we're going to talk about rigging. Now for rigging, I like to set this bait up on one of two rods. First is my kind of open water spinnerbait rod or chatterbait rod, and I use the Abu Garcia Veritas 2.0. It's a 7/6 medium heavy Frog series rod. The reason I select it for this application is because it's got a moderate fast tip, and that softer tip I think helps get better hook sets on these open style hook baits. So that's my number one choice when I'm throwing in open water where I'm not beating the bank, where I'm throwing over submerged vegetation or over points or rock piles or something like that. Something that I want to make a long cast with. But that moderate fast tip is key for this bait. My second setup is Abu Garcia Veritas 2.0 medium heavy 6'6" moderate fast action, because it still has that moderate tip, but it still has that backbone. Because like I said, I tend to catch better quality fish with this bait, so I want that medium heavy, that little more backbone, that little more power when fishing these baits. I like to throw these baits on a 6:4 gear ratio reel. I throw mine on a Abu Garcia Revo SX 6:4. Line wise, I'm throwing this on 100% fluorocarbon P-line 15-pound test. I like the 15-pound test for this bait because, like I said, again, better quality fish. I have enough line there to where I don't have to really baby the fish too much. I'm ready to go if one of those big ones gets hold of it. You could go up, if I was fishing a lake that had, if I was down south, let's say, in Florida or in Texas or somewhere down, or like on the Tennessee rivers where there's large quantities of big fish, I would probably throw this on say 17-pound test. But up north, 15-pound test works great for me. So kind of use whichever line fits your individual situation. Now we'll get into colors and styles. Really, if you're just starting out, you really only need 3 colors. I would go with a green pumpkin style color, one that imitates bluegill real well, or brim, a chartreuse and white. For me, the lakeside fish, this bait is killer. This color is killer. So a chartreuse and white is definitely a must-have. And then a black and blue. Black and blue is really good all over the country, and it's just it's a really good color to have. It's one of those staple colors you need to have in your toolbox. Now, style-wise, I'm really only going to throw 2 styles of this bait, and this is the one I'm going to throw like 90% of the time. It's just a chatterbait with a swim bait trailer. The swim baits I like to use are the Kitech Swing Impact Fat swim baits. I just think the action's incredible on these baits. They go on the hook real nice, and if you glue the tip of the swim bait to the chatterbait keeper, you can catch a couple fish on them without shredding your swim baits up. But that's how I'm going to throw my swim bait most of the time. But they also sell just these chatterbait swim bait jig heads, and it's still the chatterbait front end, but there's no skirt. It's actually specifically for throwing just a swim bait trailer on the back of it. And you can throw other trailers. You can throw a crawl style trailer on there, which will work sometimes. I just feel that I get more bites with the swim bait trailer when I'm out there imitating bait fish that the fish are on. Alright guys, now we're going to talk about locations. Where the locations you should be throwing this bait. And really, they're kind of endless. It's a very versatile bait. I like throwing this on points. You can throw it across points at any depth. You can count this bait down, let it get to the bottom, and then slow roll it. I actually had a day not too long ago. Some of the fish in this video, actually, I was catching slow rolling it over top of rock piles. And as long as you don't let this bait sink too much, as long as you're just ticking the top of those rocks where you're feeling that the jig head bump across those rocks, you're really not going to get hung up much. I think I got snagged one time all day in this video, and I was able to get it out. So, but over rock piles, this bait shines over submerged vegetation, because when you're reeling this bait, you're feeling that thump from the blade. And if all of a sudden that blade stops thumping, you'll know you have something on that blade. And a lot of times you just give that bait a hard rip, it'll clear the blade off. And also a lot of times you get a reaction strike from the fish, because you can get hung up in that vegetation, and when you rip that bait free, it looks like a fleeing bait fish, and it'll get those fish to just instinctively react. It's really good over points, creek channels. The only thing I really don't like, the only place I really don't like throwing this bait is around wood. I'll still throw it around docks. I like it around docks, but around brush piles or laydowns, I just feel it gets hung up too much, and I feel that the spinnerbait outperforms it in those certain situations. But sunny days, cloudy days, it doesn't really matter. Alright, now lastly, let's get into technique a little bit. I fish this bait kind of like I do a spinnerbait, and what I mean by that is I rarely just reel one constant speed. I'm always trying to do something to the bait to trigger those fish, to trigger those strikes. I'm trying to do something different to make that bait look less mechanical and more lifelike. I like to picture in my mind that a fish is always looking at this bait, and I'm trying to trick that fish into biting. And what that does for me is it keeps me focused on how I'm presenting the bait, on my technique, and it just lets me fish the bait a little bit better, I think. And what you're going to want to do is, obviously when you get to the lake, you're trying to figure out what technique, what presentation is going to work that day. So I might start by slow rolling this, letting it tick off the bottom or letting it tick off the top of the vegetation. And then I might start adding some pumps, some twitches, or I might all of a sudden be reeling the bait and then just kill it for a second and then start reeling again. Or I might speed up. I might be reeling it at a slow pace and then speed up for a couple turns and then go back to a slow pace. Anything I can do to make the bait look more lifelike, I'm going to try. And then when you get bit, you try to emulate that. You remember what you were doing on that cast when you get bit, and then try to do that again the next time. And that's how you kind of get into a pattern on the chatterbaits or these bladed jigs. Every day you go to the lake, you're trying to figure out which presentation for the specific bait's going to work. And sometimes it is slow rolling. On this video, I was just slow rolling this bait so that it was just ticking the tops of the rocks, and that was the deal that day. I've had other days where I've been reeling and I've had to just pause every once in a while and let that bait sink a little bit and then start swimming again. I've had days where adding a pump of the rod, flaring that skirt was what they wanted. So you kind of have to mix it up, but the general rule of thumb is that you seldomly want to just be winding it. You don't want to get into this mode where you're just winding all day. You gotta experiment a little bit and try different things to figure out what the fish are going to want that day. But enjoy the video, and I have a couple fish catches on here on this particular video. But if you're hesitant to try the chatterbait, or if you've tried it and you haven't really got much production out of it, do yourself a favor and stick with it. It's one of those baits that you have to throw a lot, and then once you start getting bit, you're going to start gaining confidence in that bait, and that's really the most important thing. If you don't have confidence in that bait, you're going to throw it out 4 or 5 times, not catch anything, and you're gonna switch to a different rod or switch to a different bait. But give it a shot, stick with it, and trust me, you will not be disappointed, because the quality of fish is very high. The land percentage on these fish is really good, especially if you're using the type of rods like I was talking about, with that moderate fast action tip, that softer tip rod. It's going to absorb some of the pull of that fish, and you're going to be able to keep more constant pressure on that fish, and they're not going to be able to throw the hook as easily. So Thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and take care. We'll see you again soon. Thanks. There's a good one. There's a good one. Good one. Good one. Good one. Very good one. Here we go. This is the one we're after here. I can see how he's got it. That's what we're after right there.